Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jami.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives.
Welcome back to another episode of FitBody Lifestyle. We're so happy to have you here. I'm here with Papa Bear, a.k.a.
Hola.
Love of my life, Gregory DeBernard. And we're excited today about our topic. We're going to talk about the 6 questions of success. So Greg's going to walk us through that so that we can all figure out how to be more successful in our lives.
Well, and I maybe the first part we start with is maybe a question in your mind, which is, why are these questions of success and not statements of success or things to do like push harder, go further, do something like that. And the reason that we formulated these as questions of success is because part of what we have discovered over time is that the inquiry of life is really where the beauty is that when we stop asking questions, we stop finding knowledge. And so the question of yourself should be the same as the question you might be asking, of anybody else. But personally, for yourself, asking yourself these questions and then finding your own answers is the way to self-discovery. So it's one of those qualities that I really have come to admire a lot in people is curiosity. Just being curious. And you, my love, have said something which always has resonated with me, which is the more knowledge you have acquired, the more questions you have. And it's amazing that when it's very easy for us as humans, and for me as a human, to have certain belief systems, my belief systems. And if I never question those beliefs, if I never go through some critical thinking and really asking myself, is this still legitimate? Does this still apply to me? Then I'm probably missing out on a big piece of my own self-discovery. What do you think about that?
No, I completely agree. And I mean, I remember saying that to you, and what sparked that really was, when I started going through my coursework for my PhD. And the reason I wanted to go through this is I wanted answers, and my focus was on nutrition and how different foods affect you. And it's, the more I learned, the more questions I had. And it's exactly what you said. And there's definitely not a one size fits all. And that's why, when we're on here so many times, when we're asking ourselves or discussing things, it's, it depends is where, we start with, because there's very rarely a all or none, black or white sort of answer, so, or an answer that applies 100% of the time. So that's where the questions come in. And, as I've learned to embrace it, I actually have more fun with it in the questions. At the beginning, I think I was really frustrated. And I think as, in my teens, early 20s, I feel like, things feel very binary. And, as I go through life, I realize things aren't so they aren't so black or white. They aren't ones and zeros, and so, it's kind of the beauty of life.
Yeah. And I think, if you are living in the absolutiverse, where everything is absolute, then you may be living in one of the planets there called Alwaysville and Neverland, or Neverville and Alwaysland, whatever. We can go with either one of those. We have just found that, there are some absolutes in life for sure, but most everything else falls in that gray spot. And the leadership equivalent to this is something that has always resonated with me. Is there was a leader at one of at the company that I spent a fair amount of time with, 31 years, and former general officer Joe Robles. Joe, rest in peace, tremendous leader. And he asked this question, or he made this statement, is that the leaders of yesterday knew all the right answers. The leaders of tomorrow know all the right questions. And so our purpose today is to kind of give you some questions to ask yourself about your own success, and really these questions are more about self-discovery and discovering what you want and what clarifies you. And I think everybody knows that we've talked about the three questions in life. What do you want? Why do you want it? And what are you willing to do to get it? Well, you're going to see that show up in one of these questions. But we start our journey today, unless you have something else.
No, let's start our journey.
All right. We start our journey today with the big question, which might surprise a few people, which is, what are you willing to give? And Jami and I have this mindset of givers gain, takers lose. And the what are you willing to give is a question that I don't know that many people ask themselves is, what are you willing to give to yourself? What are you willing to give to your community? What are you willing to give to your friends and family? We've talked in other episodes about boundaries and having some boundaries for your own sanity and your own wellness. I think we struggle with some boundaries from time to time. But I think asking yourself what you're willing to give to yourself, to others, and to your community at large is a great question to start with.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful question to start with. And I like that, you're including yourself in that. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, like the oxygen mask, if we don't
Right.
put the oxygen mask on ourselves first, then we don't have the ability to help others. So I think it's really important to look at what we can do for others and what we can do for our community and our planet and that kind of thing. And at the same time, not neglect and make sure that we're still making ourselves a priority. I know that, a lot of people struggle with time management or resource management. And so asking this question allows you to kind of take that deep dive in and see what kind of, how am I doing?
Right.
Are there areas I can improve?
Right. And I think, we talk about this, that as coaches, as leaders, as mothers, as fathers, it's very easy to give everything that you have to other people around you. And in so doing, and while that is noble and wonderful, and maybe in some cases charitable, if you're giving to, nonprofits or your church or your community, it's all those things, but it can also be very exhausting. And what we talk about and what we've talked about in our relationship is that if we are always giving to other people, then our tank to give to ourselves and our tanks to give to each other may be empty at the end of the day.
All right. So it's just about making space for all the things that
Right.
are important.
Right. And the one thing I would tell you with the giver's mindset is that, and I learned this lesson from my primary role model, my hero, my dad. But the story that goes with this is that I grew up Catholic, and we would the collection plate. I don't know how many people know this, but in Catholic Church, at least at that time, there was a collection plate that went down each aisle. They used to have ushers that would stick this pole down in front of you, and that was one way. But in other churches, it was just a basket that was passed from person to person down the aisle. And every week, my mom and dad would have an envelope that would go in that collection plate, but it didn't have anything on it. It didn't have a name or anything on it. And as the plate is passing, you can't help but see what's in there. And there's, envelopes, and you could see names on them and everything. And I asked my dad once, I said, "Dad, why don't you put our name on it?" And he said, "Well, when you give, you must give without the expectation of anything in return." And that really, to me, was something that really has stuck with me for, however many years, a lot of years. That when you give, the true giver's heart means that you're not expecting anything in return. And I do think that as
If
you
you
give,
are, it's not giving. It's a
not giving.
transaction.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And that's exactly the right way to think about it. I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly what I'm thinking is, giving is giving. And that means, it's a one-way street without any expectation of return.
Right.
And we've talked about this a lot in the giver's gain mentality is that it always comes back in some form or another, but it's not, there's no expectation that it come back.
There's no expectation. There's no timeline.
Exactly. Well, and the comeback might be just a sense of pride or a sense of self-worth you have because you are giving in life. It could just be just that alone, or, it can come back in so many different forms. The joy you get from seeing someone else benefit from what you're giving. You know,
Right.
I mean, you and I have talked about this before, because you're such a giver, and sometimes, you know, it's a struggle to receive, which is important too. And, you know, that reminder I gave you of like, it's a gift to gladly receive from someone else. You're giving them that gift and allowing them to enjoy that moment, you know?
Right.
So, so anyway, so that's all I have to add there.
I would share with you a little bit more in depth on that is the question you asked me, and the question I now ask myself is do I get fulfillment out of giving? And if the answer to that is yes, then the second part of it is then why would I prevent somebody else from wanting to experience that same fulfillment if they were giving to me? Because in effect, that makes me selfish, if I'm saying, which is the opposite of being giving. And so I do think that, you know, as you're asking that question of yourself, what are you willing to give? I do think your ability to receive gifts
Can be a gift in itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we say gifts, I mean, I'm not talking about, you know, $10 or money or
I mean, it
or
could be.
tickets. It could be those things. But
It doesn't. It could be a compliment.
it could be time.
It could be,
Yes.
anything.
Yes.
It's really, there's so many ways to give. It doesn't have to be monetary, but monetary is one way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the second question is are you willing to fail and learn? And this one's an interesting one because I think in our world, in the competition world, I mean, I don't know of anybody that we've ever talked to or any athlete I've ever talked to or competitor who said, you know what? I'm willing to go up on the stage and fail, and because I know that if I fail, I'm just gonna be better at it time and time again. They may eventually get to that, but I don't know anybody that's gone into it with the mindset of I'm willing to fail, because I think this is a sport, and any competitive sport is a sport that these are endeavors that value winning. In the business world, you know, there's no second places. You gotta keep the profits ahead of the losses, or you're not going to succeed. So I do think that question, though, anything that you do, and especially if it's the first time you're doing something, you've got to have a failure mindset, knowing that, hey, I'm going to do my best, and if I fail, I'll fail, but I'll learn something from it, and that will make me better.
I think it's also important to define failure, you know, because when we talk about failure in the bodybuilding world, for example, you know, you can talk about wins and losses, but you can win and still have failures.
That's true.
I mean, you can go up and know you didn't put your best. Maybe you didn't do your routine the way that you originally planned, or, you know, something else happened.
Your prep wasn't what you wanted it to be, right?
And maybe you still were the best on that day and you still won, but
Right.
it might not have even been your best in your history of competing. So I think that, you know, taking the win and loss out of it, because that's a piece that's out of the control. But then each time that after action of like, oh, wow, I could have done this better. You know, this wasn't exactly what I practiced. And then embracing it. Okay, great. That's an opportunity for continued improvement. So, you know, I think that willingness to make mistakes and realize it's not the end of the world is really important. You know, those mistakes are opportunities, and that's where real growth happens.
Right. And I think you could easily, the reason why I include are you willing to fail is really to just take the power out of that word. At the end of the day, the only real failure is when you stop. So if I do something,
Or if you don't learn from it.
Yeah. If I do roller skating tomorrow and I fall and I'm saying, you know, enough, and I'm stopped, then I can absolutely say that I failed it.
I'm gonna really enjoy watching this.
This is not going to happen. But I could say that I failed at roller skating because I stopped. I stopped because I hit a bump, and I wasn't willing to learn from that bump and go on, which gets into other questions of success. But this question could easily be, am I willing to learn? Because at the end of the day, and you know, I love what Brene Brown talks about this, is her perspective is there's
You're not
no
gonna say you're a fanboy.
well, I am the big fanboy of Brene. Yes, I will say that. Thank you for reminding me and reminding her. I don't know. She'll never listen, but on the one day that she does, I hope that she hears, Brene, I'm your biggest fanboy. But the mindset that there are learnings. Everything is a learning, and so it's the same question that we ask on the other side, which is that knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And the same way that if you accept that proposition, then when you learn something, when you do something and it doesn't turn out the way you want and you learn from it, then you are progressing and you are moving forward, and there is a learning there. Applying that learning is what will make you better.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
All right, number 3.
The next question: are you willing to be excellent at what you do? So this is something that I see in our world a lot, because where it came from is in the corporate world, where I saw a lot of people that I mentored and people that I would just meet, new employees and stuff, they would just be starting, and their first question out was, okay, how do I get to this job? How do I get to this job? How do I get to this job? And the answer that I always gave was, the way that you get to that job is to be excellent at this job. Focus on what you're doing. Focus on learning everything that you can about the job that you're currently in, and these opportunities will present themselves. Because I don't know anybody, I never saw anybody get promoted with this lead-in. Hey, Jami, you are mediocre at your job, so we're going to promote you to the next position. I never heard that. Okay, I'm not saying there weren't some mediocre people that got promoted, but I don't know I don't know any leadership that didn't get any people that progress without being excellent at what they do. In our bodybuilding world, I think that there is this tendency to want to find the newer, better, best thing. And the reality is that time, intensity, consistency, and focus are the things that really drive people forward. And with the big emphasis on C as consistency is, are you willing to find excellence in that every day? Are you willing to be the best every day?
Right. It's easy to slip into that good enough attitude of, that was good enough. I did the bare bones minimum, kind of thing. And what I hear you saying is that this is that going above and beyond, stepping up, stretching outside of your comfort zone. The good enough kind of mentality is like in that comfort zone. Okay, I'm just kind of cruising along, everything's fine, and when you start to see amazing things happen in your life is where you start to stretch as far beyond that as you can to see, how good could I be at this?
Right.
And I've absolutely, I've seen this as an employer, both in the corporate world and in our business as well. I mean, I've had athletes that I've coached that, kind of had that good enough mentality with themselves as athletes. So when they came to me and said, hey, I'm really interested in becoming a coach, I was like, I want my coaches to want to be excellent, and so I haven't seen that in your in your mindset yet. So, the example you gave was perfect. And if we want to have, that recognition and the opportunities presented to us, then, our goal is to stay present and master what we're doing currently, to really embrace the journey and make the most of every piece of it, so that, as we become masters of it, then those new doors and windows start to open up when we're ready.
And the sub notes I have under this is, are you willing to embrace progress over perfection? Because in that goal to be excellent at what you do, there will be failures, there will be learnings. And again, if you are focused on being excellent at what you do, those become stepping stones on the way to being excellent and seeking mastery. Daniel Pink writes a book, Autonomy, Mastery, and Purpose, that is one of the seminal books that I have really relied on a lot over the years, because it really talks about building that mastery over what you do and that little bit better every day and focusing on the basics. There was one of my favorite movies of all time is The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, and go ahead and criticize that, which is fine. But there's a part in that where he's now embedded in this samurai culture, where he sees them dedicating daily practice to the most simple of things: tea service, making mats, swordsmanship, the basic things. But he sees the practice, he sees the dedication, and he comments, "I've never seen a culture so dedicated towards the mastery of everyday of simple tasks." And he admires that, and I admire that, because my father once said that, I don't care what you do in life, just be good at what you do. And when you see people just embracing that mastery of what they're doing, it really isn't. It's inspiring to me, at least. I will say that.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And that's really the basis for that saying is it's the way you're doing, what kind of intent and what are you putting into the small things in life, and that reflects into the bigger things. And as you were talking about that movie, I was thinking about Karate Kid.
Also, really good example. Yeah.
Same idea.
Wax on, wax off.
Right.
Yeah.
He showed up and he's like, "When are you going to teach me karate?" And he says, "Here, you're going to wax the floor. You're going to,
sand the floor.
Sand the floor. Sorry. Well, what is he waxing? It's
waxing on the car.
Well, okay,
he's
waxing the car. Okay,
yeah.
thank you. But I mean, the idea being that, rather than jumping 5 steps ahead, let's stay present and master this moment and put intent behind it, so.
And I want you to think about this from a leadership perspective, and Jami and I have talked about, I've kind of said this, but man, there is something so pure and so inspiring to watch somebody that you coach, an employee, just really focus on mastery of something simple. Just mastery of their world. There is just something, because that if they're so focused on mastering this, and man, we've all had crap jobs, we've all had crap assignments or crappy things that we need to do from time to time. And, like going back to my father, he said, I don't care if you're a garbage collector, be a good garbage collector. And that really is that mindset of being excellent in what you do. If you are putting that same kind of passion, focus, and intensity into the menial things, imagine what you can do with the things that you truly love. And we talk about this relative to improvement season or growth season versus contest season, is that when people get into prep, man, they turn it on. But the people who are the most successful are the people who really put that same passion, enthusiasm, focus into their improvement season or their growth season. And that really is that mindset of, are you willing to be excellent at what you do? Are you willing to be excellent in your reverse? Are you willing to be excellent in your off season? Are you willing to be excellent in your macros? These things matter, and that mastery is what's going to propel you further.
Right. As you're talking about it too, I'm thinking about, a lot of times people go into the gym and they just want to get to building, whereas coming in, thinking about, okay, how do I need to properly prepare my body for this workout? Do I need to roll? Do I need to stretch? Like what kind of warm-ups do I need to do? So that's that being present, getting in tune with the body, doing those steps rather than just going, I just want to get this done and get in and get out of here, which I understand sometimes we got to do that. It's really more the mindset that we're talking about that goes around it and being intentional. Interested in changing your life or stepping on stage? Join FitBody Fusion today.
Experience the FitBody Fusion difference with tools, knowledge, and community support to reach your healthy and sustainable lifestyle.
We guide thousands on their fitness journeys, from seasoned athletes to those who are simply seeking a healthier life.
Our expert coaches provide personalized plans and unwavering support, empowering you to thrive.
FitBody Fusion is more than just training. It's a community. We understand the challenges of solo fitness journeys, which is why we foster a supportive environment where members encourage and motivate each other.
Join the FitBody Fusion community today and unlock your full potential.
Head to fitbodyfusion.com to sign up for a free consultation.
And do it today. And if you are of a certain age and you're younger, it's very easy to go into the gym and just focus. I want to move some weights today. I want to power through. And what we have both talked about is that as we have gotten older, we have found that the ratio of prep to workout has gotten juxtaposed. So there's a lot more time spending in the prep and the preparation for that workout, but the workout becomes so much better. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how much better I would have worked out, in my youth, when I wasn't.
If only I knew then what I know
exactly.
now, right?
So we're sharing it
with you guys.
We're sharing that, and because that prep work is actually more important than the workout in the sense that if you're not properly prepared, you are risking injury. And anyway, this is
what do you say? Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
That's
I know.
Exactly right.
Okay, good.
7 Ps,
I thought you were going to tell me I did it in the wrong order.
You did good. You did good.
Okay, all right. So number 4.
Number 4 is, what do you want and what are you willing to do? And we've talked about these questions before, so I don't know that we need to get so into them, but I do think what do you want? There are so many paths to get to the top of the mountain. Are you willing to find your path? Because it's going to be different for everybody. No two paths to the top of whatever mountain you're climbing is going to be different. But you've got to be clear on what you're willing to do to get to the top of the mountain that you see.
Absolutely. And this is very current for me because I had a situation and a long conversation with an athlete this week that, kept presenting me with things that they were not going to do or not willing to do. And I'm like, that's totally fine. Like, you get to decide. And at the same time, there's another side to that. So, and this goes for anything in life. If I am going to be stepping on the bodybuilding stage and I'm not willing to do more than 30 minutes of cardio per day, let's say, and I'm not going to be maybe not as lean as the other athletes that were willing to say do 40 minutes or not, whatever, just as an example, I'm going to be at a disadvantage. So my expectation needs to be a little different. And some people only need to do 30 minutes. Like I'm just using this as an example. So my point is that, in each decision we make in life as to what we're willing to apply towards a goal, we have to keep in mind, an expectation of outcome.
That's right. And I think the way I would describe it is, okay, if you want to get to a top of a specific mountain, there may be specific steps that you need to get to the top of that mountain. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not a back way or a side way or a different way to get to the top of the mountain, but they're within a lot of established goals. The path to get to that may be fairly there may be some known variables to get to the top of that mountain. Cardio may be an example. Look, if I want to be a men's open bodybuilder, but I say, look, I'm not willing to train more than 2 days a week, is it likely that I'm going to get to men's open bodybuilder on the Olympia stage? Not likely. I'm not saying it can't happen, and I would never. There are many things that are possible, but it's unlikely. And so as you're planning that what are you willing to do piece against your expectations and your reality, it's important to be realistic. Now, if you know what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do those things. And the goal may be a little bit less defined if you're not willing to do certain things that are on that established path. It doesn't mean that you may not ultimately get to that goal that you want or that objective that you want, but being realistic with the outcomes based on what you're willing to do or what you're not willing to do. And really that comes just down to being realistic with yourself and authentic with yourself.
100%. And really things as simple as, are you willing to get to bed early so you're getting 8 hours of sleep a night so you're fully recovered every day? It sounds like a simple thing, but it can make a huge difference, if your goal is to do a bodybuilding show. And so, if people I don't want to have to do that. I want to be able to stay up and watch my shows at night or do whatever. You know what I mean? That's okay. There's no judgment on that. It's just really a matter of setting expectations. If as you continue to go to a more elite level, whether it be in sports or corporate or whatever in life that you're doing, that next level, those people are typically willing to do more, work harder, make more sacrifices, and, with bodybuilding, for some people it's a hobby and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Nope.
People are like, hey, I like to have a goal. It helps me stay in shape. It's kind of more bucket list sort of thing for me. I'm not trying to turn pro. I just like to see, consistent improvement. There is nothing wrong with that. So I think it's important. That's part of defining, the what do you want, and then what are you willing to do with it? And they got to go together. It's got to match. You know what I mean? It's like if I want to be number one in the whole world and what I'm willing to do is,
I'm only work 1 day a week to do that.
Right. 1/10 of what the person who is currently number one in the world is willing to do. I'm probably not ever going to be there. And maybe I wouldn't be anyway, but you get the point is we have to be, think about, making sure that what our goals are and our visions are for our life are consistent with what we're willing to do. So.
And neither of us are believers in this concept of I'm going to outwork everybody. That's not what we're talking about here. This is not about working harder than somebody else because working harder is such a relative term in terms of, hey, look, if somebody is in a wheelchair, them working harder is going to look different than somebody who is not in a wheelchair. That's just a dynamic of physical ability, but it doesn't mean that the person outside of the wheelchair is not working equally as hard or harder than the person in the wheelchair. It just is different. It's everybody's thing. So this notion that I'm going to outwork everybody else, I reject that. I'm not a fan of that. I shouldn't say I reject it. That's just not something I personally believe. Yes, it's not something I personally believe. I believe work is relative for yourself, but there is a certain amount of work that must be performed in order to gain mastery over anything. And if you're not willing to put in that work, then be honest with yourself and be realistic in your expectations.
Well, I mean, some of the work is the discipline aspect of it. It's the time blocking. It's the consistency aspect. It's not always working harder. In some cases, it's being more disciplined. Displaying better time management and other things, or sacrificing other things that you want to do sometimes. So, all right. So, what is number five?
Number 5 is my favorite because it was inspired by RuPaul.
Then that makes sense.
Everybody knows that we're big RuPaul Drag Race fans, and there's a notion on the show that are you willing? And the question is are you willing to embrace the rules of the improv? And the rule of the improv is simply this: the first rule of the improv is yes and exactly. And where this comes into application with success is that along your journey, along your road, if you're applying these other questions and you are putting in the work and you are focused at being excellent at what you do, and there are things that are happening in your life, there are going to be opportunities that are going to present themselves. They may not be the opportunity that you think. They may not be the opportunity that you even wanted, but it may be an opportunity. And this is for success. Are you willing to do that yes and when that opportunity presents itself? Now, this has to be balanced against boundaries, and this has to be balanced against time management, because it's not about saying yes to everything. That is not this question. This question is when an opportunity presents itself, it is a reflection of the work that you've been putting in, the excellence that you've obtained, the mastery, but it's an opportunity that deviates you from that purpose. Are you willing to accept that? Are you willing to say yes and?
Yeah.
Yes, and how do I what yes, and what's the next step?
Mm-hmm. So that pause of consideration, rather than going, this is not what I expected, and I'm going to take my toys and go home.
That's right.
That moment of like, okay, this isn't what I expected, and I can make this work.
That's right. Or yes, and this isn't what I thought I wanted, but as I go through and look at this opportunity a little bit deeper, it presents me with some things that I hadn't thought of. And these things that I hadn't thought of are very exciting to me, and I want to do that. And let's go with something that's very topical right now, which is fit model division. So I know it's very interesting that a lot of the chatter that I'm hearing, or the feedback I'm getting from athletes is very much aligned to when figure was, or when wellness came in. Certain athletes would say, well, I don't want to be wellness. I really want to be a bikini athlete. Or I don't want to be bikini. I want to be wellness. And it goes with figure. I want to be figure, but I don't want to be bikini, because this is a mindset that they have conditioned themselves to thinking that bikini is A, B, and C, wellness is A, B, and C, fit model is A, B, and C, whatever that notion is. But through your training and mastering everything, certain opportunities may present themselves, and wow, that opportunity of you to go to a different division where you might be more successful presents itself. Not what you were training for, not what you were oriented towards mentally or emotionally. And question number 5, are you willing to embrace the rules of the improv? Yes, I've taken a look at that, and I do agree that I can be more successful in that. Or yes, this interests me, and I'd like to see if I can be more successful doing that.
Right. Well, and just it's an individual thing, figuring out, I think in this particular situation, there are also, options to consider, so when people come to us, a lot of times, maybe you're a better fit now for fit model. Right. And you can keep growing into bikini if you like to. Right. Or, you can decide to grow more first. I mean, there's always options in this. I think it's the pause of considering, when something new and a new opportunity comes your way, just taking that pause.
That's exactly right. As simply as that, is just taking a moment to and part of it is that okay, if somebody asks you, you're a traditional bikini competitor, and somebody says, hey, would you consider fit model? And if the first thing out of your mouth is no, then you're not going to that next level of asking yourself, why is it a no for me? What is it
Well,
about?
and why might this person be asking the
that's
question?
right.
I mean,
That's right.
is there something I need to consider? And we talked about ask questions. Ask
That's
more
right.
questions. Like, why would you suggest that for me? Is there a reason? And then that might help to decide.
That's right. Okay. Last question.
Last
You
but
ready
not
for it?
least, I'm ready.
This is a three-parter. Okay. And it is this. Are you willing to love what you do, who you do it with, and yourself? And this
I
is
love who I do it with.
and I love who I do it with every single day, babe. And that's why I keep coming back because I do.
Because you can't escape me.
Because I love you. And probably
Don't let him trick you. He's a
Well,
he's a captive. No, just kidding.
This is like the Star Trek thing. You must be assimilated, and resistance is futile. So, and I'm okay with that. I do think asking whether finding what you love and what you do, finding what you love and the people that you do it with, and finding love for yourself is really a question that I don't know that many people ask themselves. I will tell you that I never used to ask myself that question. And when I did ask myself that first question, do I love myself? And there was a pause. There was a pause there, and I'm like, do I love myself? And I had to really go back and ask myself about the things I was telling myself, the things that I was doing. Did I really love myself? It was one of those soul searching moments where I really had to come back and down. And it was a time in my life when I had some things that I was doing that weren't as healthy. I was drinking a little bit more than not to the point of being alcoholic, but I was drinking more than what I was comfortable with. And I was living a lifestyle where I was out late. Not really focused on my health as much, and just not doing the things that really fulfilled me. And I had to ask myself that question, and it was just before I met you, in fact, about whether I love myself. And until I actually asked that question and came up with I don't know. That's when I really had to start digging deep and prepare myself, which I didn't know I was preparing myself, but I was preparing myself for you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And true. And then the second thing is, this goes back to, are you willing to be excellent at what you do? And this is, are you willing to love what you do? Man, I'll tell you, again, going back to my dad, that was a man who found joy and love in the most meaningless things that he would do, from juicing to cooking to cleaning the house to he was a janitor and I was a janitor, and man, I didn't. I'm not going to say I loved being a janitor, but I loved but I did love this aspect of it. I loved cleaning things. I love seeing things that were messy and then cleaned after I touched them. There was a sense of satisfaction, and I was able to tap into that love for what I was doing and get through that job as a janitor for that period of time that I was in. And I wasn't asking myself this question at that time because I was way younger. But I do think asking yourself, going into the gym day after day, rep after rep is monotonous. It's very easy to get into the mindset of, I don't love this anymore. Being able to really tap into that love for what you do is going to help you be excellent at what you do.
Another thing I think is interesting about this is it doesn't mean you're going to like it every day.
Nope.
It doesn't mean like every day you're raring to go. Like, oh, I can't wait to get into the gym today, or I can't wait to go clean the house today. And, I think it's the bigger picture of, being able to find the love in what you're doing. Like you described, I think about, I don't love, well, kind of, I do actually love, I was going to say cooking.
There are times when you do.
I do. I do love the process of doing something that makes others happy and then watching them enjoy it. So, there's pieces of it that I don't really like, maybe the grocery shopping or the prep work or, certain pieces of it. And that's okay too. I mean, it's, I think it's that understanding that everything's not going to feel great 100% of the time, and being able to accept that and still find the joy and the love in the big picture of what we do.
Yeah. And I do think that I have noticed a difference when you're cooking for other people. There's a love there. When you're cooking for yourself, or just because like it just becomes the utility of cooking, there's not as much love there. And so I do think that that ties in with the giver's aspect to it. But I also think that, you know, being able to tap into that reason that you love something is really the key to being able to push through it. And not liking it is absolutely not a requirement. And it's the same rule that I apply to family, is that with family, man, you don't got to like them. Sometimes you don't, but they're family, so you love them. You love them, and you do that. And it's just like, you know, you can apply that to almost anything in life, is just really tapping into that love center inside of you. And the more you can tap into that, the more the menial things that you're doing that may be difficult, that you may not like, you're able to get through, because you find a way to love it. And what I would also encourage you to do is, as you're asking this, is are you willing to have fun with it? Because it's funny that there's a really close tie between fun and love. And if you're having fun when you're doing something, I think of Admiral McRaven's book, or his speech that he gave. You can YouTube it if you want. His commencement address, I think it's 2011, to the University of Texas. And Admiral McRaven's a SEAL, and he's written some fantastic books. But he's talking about how there were SEALs that were in this portion of buds, and they were buried literally neck up to their necks in sand or something, and it was cold, and the instructors were asking them, hey, if one of you taps out or one of you rings the bell, we'll let everybody out. Come on. It was dark, it was cold, all these bad conditions. And so one person started singing in the dark, and that one person that started singing made the next person start singing, and the next person started singing, and the next person. Suddenly the whole platoon was singing, and it made a difference for everybody. And I have noticed that, you know, when I was running in formation in the military, when we were singing a Jody, which is the song that we sing, it became much more enjoyable than just running on my own, which was laborious, and I hated that. But there was some joy in the singing of the Jody during something that I did not like to do.
I love that example.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking about the saying, if you're bored, you're boring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, if you're like, this isn't fun, well, then maybe you're not being fun, you know? And like you're saying, like, it's certainly not fun being buried in the sand, freezing, uncomfortable, and yet they were able to find a way to make it fun. So, you know, I think that's a great challenge for our listeners and for ourselves, is, you know, when we're in that situation, or we find ourselves, you know, resenting what we're doing, or not enjoying what we're doing, or feeling like we don't like what we're doing, then, you know, to take that moment to think about, how can I make this fun? Like, what can I do? And I know there are aspects of every job, every hobby, everything. There's aspects of it that aren't going to always be the most fun, and yet how can we make them? You know, I know for us and what we do, a lot of the way we've made certain things fun is by building community and relationships, because it's exactly like you're saying, you know, if you want to go
fast, go alone.
If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
So, you know, just even creating those bonds where, I know some of our athletes have, you know, been accountability partners for each other. So maybe they're on cardio and they're sending, you know, pictures, or, you know, FaceTiming, or doing something like that, just to make it more fun, just to laugh and cut up and, oh God, we're doing cardio again, kind of thing, you know? So there's ways. Where there's a will, there's a way. You can make it fun.
And the challenge here is simply this, is that if you're doing something and you're not finding the love in it, are you willing to go that next level and find something about it that you love, or make it something into what you love? So just what you're talking about, the cardio, finding, hey, you know, I mean, it's part of the reason why I think Peloton has been so successful with their bikes, is why group classes are so successful, is there's a difference when you're in a group class and you see people around you. It's easier to find love in that, in the sense of community. So if there's something that you're doing, and this is the challenge for the day, is if there's something that you're doing and you don't like doing it, what can you do to find something that you do love about it? Can you build community around it? Can you find something about it, an aspect of it that you love, and then exemplify that? Can you make it fun? You know, I think about changing a baby's diaper. Definitely not fun. But but I've seen people approach that with a level of love and just a level of fun. And it's like, just my mom and dad were this way, where that my dad in particular, he could just be doing the crappiest thing and just a big smile on his face that like he was just like he had just won the lottery. And man, that level of enlightenment doesn't come with just anything. It came through his life, which was very difficult, and a life that was well lived. And I don't know that he always had that characteristic, but as long as I can remember him, he did. So, all right. So you want me to go through the questions real quick to
Yes,
summarize?
give
Okay.
us a
So question
summary.
number 1 is, what are you willing to give? Question number 2 is, are you willing to fail and learn? Question number 3, are you willing to be excellent at what you do? Number 4, what do you want and what are you willing to do to get what you want? Number 5, are you willing to embrace the rules of the improv, which is yes and? And question number 6, are you willing to love who you are, who you work with, and what you do?
Well,
And that's it.
I love who I work with.
Baby, I love who I work with, and I love what I do with you, and I love myself because of you. So,
Well, hopefully this has been inspiring to all of our listeners to find those things that they love about what they're doing and who they're doing it with, and to
if you
continue to progress and do and achieve the things that they want in their lives.
And if you have questions that you want to add to this list, put them in the comments, because you guys know what comes next. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, leave your reviews, and we would love to see your comments. If there are questions that resonated with you, if there are questions that you ask yourself that we didn't ask, because, man, this list is by no means finite. I'm sure there's different interpretations and different questions that you're asking yourself. So remember the 3 B's: be good to yourself.
Be good to each other.
And
Be safe.
be safe. Oh, wait, we got to do that together.
And
be safe. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBodyFusion.